So I think it'd be more
restroom slash locker room instead of.
What's the difference? You know,
Right.
Because they're all the same.
It's all
Yeah.
kind of the same. Right?
Yeah, you can do that.
I do have one question on this, even though you're rearranging it, restroom versus locker room. Does the school system have sufficient single-use areas for those non-transgender folks to utilize in a timely manner if they do decide that they wish to have a heightened sense of privacy? In other words, do you have 30 single-use areas if there are 40 kids who decide I do not wish to change in front of a transgender child?
We haven't had any problems yet. We've been, again, our practice has been rely on the principals to say what the practice has been, but our practice has been what this policy is saying. So I think we've been able to meet the need, but I, again, rely on principals and what they would say.
You know, it's not like a rock concert where we have 40 people wanting to use the bathroom at the same time. It doesn't happen. And middle school kids, they don't change anyway for gym. Not that they would want to change in front of you anyway, but if I'm a student, I'm loving this because I can use those teenage bathrooms, which there are several, and it's just like using the bathroom at home. You shut the door, private, and all is good. But no, I have not seen any lines waiting for the bathrooms.
So should there be a student who would be penalized if they were late?
No.
So it's moot.
No.
Okay.
Maybe the only place we've seen lines for the bathroom is when the first grade classroom or third grade classroom is in line to use the bathroom, because that's what they do. They've been doing that since I was in school.
For yep. Okay.
So would we just incorporate restroom and locker room in that highlighted paragraph?
Yeah, I think we
And
change
just
the
keep
header
that,
to
and just keep it
Locker
that way.
restroom, locker room,
Yeah.
accessibility.
Or just keep everything together.
It's just going on.
And the highlighted area of G, physical education and intramural sports, again, that's a piece from the Oyster Rivers School District's policy, and maybe suggesting, I don't know if we want to add all of it together, physical education and sports participation.
I think it should, because you mentioned NHIAA in the first paragraph, and then there's a section of interscholastic, a different letter for that, so making that all one would make sense.
So cut out H.
Yeah. And I would, physical education / intramural sports / interscholastic.
I have a question with H. I mean, what happens if Guilford participates against a school who doesn't have this policy? How does that affect participation with NHIAA?
I think the policy for NHIAA right now is whatever the school's decision is what they will go with. So they are not taking a stand one way or the other, is my understanding, NHIAA. But they are allowing the schools to make that decision, and whatever decision the schools have made is what.
Is there any thought to that right now the Department of Education is reviewing a complaint in Connecticut? Is there any thought to that now? We're now going forward with this while that complaint is going on. It's still being investigated.
Yeah, so
I mean, this has, I will say this is one of my more concerns because of not even looking at competitive sports, and competition is one thing, but I do have 2 little girls, and once kids hit puberty, whether we want to recognize it or not, there is a difference. And now you're putting my child at risk, and I do have a problem with that. That is a safety issue.
Putting them at risk how?
Because you're now asking them to participate in sports with someone that has gone through puberty in a different way. I mean, there's a difference between me when I was 18 and when you were 18.
Yeah.
I'm physically stronger than my wife. She works out twice as much as I do. There is a possibility of injury. And I do have a problem when I'm down there on a field with someone if there's physical advantage. Or if it's not fair. So if we're going to go back into fairness, I don't think this is.
So, okay, so can I just put the devil's advocate hat on here for a minute? Not to do argument, but just something to think about. What if you have a girl who's the same age, same grade as your daughter, and she has a hormone issue where she has hyper whatever, okay? So her hormones have really taken over where she's become a giant. And that technically is a medical problem.
Okay, but the hormones aren't the only thing that change. Like this isn't just a testosterone level.
Right, but
there's
her
muscle
strength.
mass.
But that's my point. With that change of those hormones, their whole body physically changes. They become much stronger and much bigger than people their age.
But there was a determination off of biology that made the determination that person is a female, so that it is different. I understand what you're saying, but we are trying to. I mean, again, we're trying to avoid having the conversation of one-offs. I mean, this is one random off that might come up, but this is more prevalent when we're talking about today.
Most of these kids today, with the affirming model of care, it's a different generation than the kids who we see in high school now. Most of these kids now, will not go through the puberty of what they were born into.
Sure,
I
understand that.
They will take puberty blockers, and then they will take cross hormones, and so my child's body will end up just like mine. And the chance of a transgender girl who has gone through male puberty and looks like a man wanting to compete and be out there on a sports team with girls is very small. And if that child actually does want to compete, let me tell you, that child is more at risk than your child. And we know that that child's grades will increase greatly if they actually are allowed to play on sports teams that are affirming for them. It's very rare that that's going to happen nowadays. But if it does, it's that child who is at risk, which is why it's a policy to protect that child.
And I understand that, and by all means, I mean, I think I'd tell my child to be nothing but respectful to anybody. It doesn't matter the situation or the circumstances, but there is a physical safety concern. I mean, I understand, and it's not about the way somebody looks, to say they look like a female, they look like a male, because there's all kinds of circumstances that we can't even cover, but there is a difference. I mean, you can go back and compare competitive sports if you just want to go on competition. There are differences, like when Jackie Joyner-Kersee was taking testosterone, she would have finished, and she won the Olympics and was disqualified. She would have been 15th in the males if she ran in that race. But then there are documented issues where in rugby and soccer, and I understand we're not doing mixed martial arts, but where there is serious injury because this line has been crossed. And I just feel like at this point, it's a dangerous thing to step, because again, you're asking me to put my child out there not knowing who she is going to face. I mean, she's participating in something where she feels that everyone went through the same puberty change as she did. So this is, as I said, there will be kids that will not go through puberty, but there's also a certain percentage of children who, and I don't have the exact number, but I think probably more than not, don't go through that change because they're still determining what they are. They're still trying to figure out how they, where they fit into society, and gender, being non-conforming and undetermined. I'm trying to use any wrong words, so I keep going on with that. But there are those children who just aren't going to do anything yet because that's a decision that's going to affect the rest of their lives. And again, it comes down to a safety issue.
Is there any evidence with kids? You're talking about older people, but is there any evidence? Do you have any evidence of kids being hurt? Like,
I do not have anything specific example right in front of me, but again, I do know that it's being reviewed by the Department of Education.
okay, I guess my question would be is,
I mean, even Chris McDonough in October spoke against this, and the chairman of the board.
Well, Title IX has been interpreted under case law for gender identity discrimination, and the result of that was that not allowing transgender students to participate in sports violates their Title IX rights.
And that's what in Connecticut, the Department of Education is investigating, because again, it's an interpretation. I think we all know what the spirit was at that time. It's now being interpreted in a different manner, and that's what they're reviewing now. So in my opinion, it violates Title IX, because it does put, now if you have 10 children who can participate in a female sport, you are now saying, well, only nine can, and you're now removing an opportunity from a child as well.
Croc TV.